Hey, what's up, guys? Another video here. So today I want to talk about tips for dividend investing. So first of all, you should really only do dividend investing when you are trying to obtain an income from your net worth. So when you're starting out with your portfolio, you really want to concentrate on capital appreciation, like I've mentioned before, because the rate of capital appreciation is going to be much greater than what you get off of dividends. So now that we have that established, if you are trying to have some kind of regular cash income from your investments, then of course you should go with dividends. So at the same time, you can still grow your assets while pulling some kind of monthly cash flow from your investments. So when you are dividend investing, you must always look for the consistently paying dividend, ideally that it's occurred over decades of time. So through bad times, through good times, they are still consistently paying out dividends no matter what the macroeconomic environment is. So that's really important. So if they are paying out their dividend every quarter for decades at a time, then most likely the likelihood of them discontinuing or cutting the dividend is quite low. I'm not saying it's guaranteed not to continue like it is, but it's an indication that the company is going to stick with paying the dividends no matter what kind of a macro environment there is in the general market. So that's number one. So you want to look at the consistency of the dividend if they're paying every quarter, regardless of the general market. And after you found such dividend, you have to check if the dividend has been raised over time. So generally, you'll see that it may be raised a few cents annually, and again, that's a good sign, especially if the price of the stock fluctuates, especially downwards, then you'll be getting a higher yield. So that's really important. So that's number two, to check if the dividend has been raised over time. So thirdly, you have to check the financials of the company, namely the income statement, to see if this dividend can be supported. But usually, really well established mega cap, large cap companies, they are going to have a fairly healthy income statement. So that's why they can continually pay these quarterly dividends. So you can check that, check the annual income statements over the past few years, and also check the trailing 12 months, the TTM. And it's really important that once you establish one, two, and three, that you pick a multitude of companies so you can play some price arbitrage as far as if the market price of a certain company goes down and your yield goes up, you may want to select that at the time that you're purchasing shares for the dividends for the future. So you're essentially locking in that fixed dividend, assuming it doesn't go down. Again, everything is subject to go down or be discontinued, so you just have to diversify how you're getting your dividends. So that's really important. And the fifth point is you have to examine how sustainable is the sector. So a lot of sectors that pay well are energy, such as oil, utilities, telecommunications, and anything else that, for example, consumer discretionary goods, things like that. So the yields really they vary. So they can vary from anywhere from usually 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%. It just really depends on how the current market is and how the shares of the companies fluctuate. But for example, if you look at Walmart, they're consistently paying the dividend, but the yield is kind of low. If you look at companies such as ExxonMobil and BP, their yields are fairly high now because their market price has dropped significantly. And again, who knows what's going to happen with the energy sector? Who knows if it's going to consistently pay out? But you have to go with what you know, which I mentioned prior. And history is kind of a good indicator, especially if you have downtimes that if they're continuing to pay the dividend, despite having the general market, the general economy being down in the gutter, then it's a good chance that they'll continue to pay out. So even these companies raise their dividend in bad times. So I think that's a positive indicator that management and the board are very committed to paying the dividend. And lastly, you just also have to take into consideration the taxation of the dividends at the end of the year. So in the United States, at least, it's bracketed. So your marginal tax rate for the dividends, of course, is going to be higher if you make over around 40,000 in dividends. But you also have to keep in mind if you have capital gains for the years, things like that. So just make sure that you're aware that you may have some tax liability at the end of the year. So that really depends on your situation, how much you're getting through your capital gains and your dividend income. So it really depends. So I can't answer that for you. But a strategy that people use, or myself that I'm looking at or consider, is maybe the first quarter or the first dividend payout of the year you can use toward your taxes. So that's just an FYI if you do go that route. So just to recap, when you're dividend investing, you always should look at if the company has consistently paid the dividend, ideally over a period of decades of times without breaks. Again, considering the macro environment, if it's bad or good times. Number two is after you found such dividend, check if the dividend has been raised over time. So that's important. So you're sure that your original purchase is going to be continually yielding you a higher absolute dividend. Third, check the financials of the company if their income statement can support it. So you look over annually, see if they are healthy, having a good net income, and also check the trailing 12 months. Number four is you need to pick a multitude of companies, so that way you can pick the highest yield instead of just sticking with one company. And again, that's risky because you're not diversifying your dividend portfolio. Number five is you have to check how sustainable is the sector. Energy, oil, maybe a little shaky, maybe 30, 40 years from now, but telecommunications and consumer goods or retail such as Walmart may be fairly safe. Again, you never know, so you always have to keep an eye out for that. And also, lastly, remember to take into the tax consideration. And again, depending on your situation, you may or may not owe tax depending on, again, your situation. So anyways, thanks guys for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.